So are black men really choosing white women over black women? You know, I often hear how black men have a preference for white women, or once a black man makes a good amount of money, he'll choose to date outside his race. So let's take a look at what's happening. So to start things off, yes, black men are marrying outside of the race much more than black women. According to Pew Research, black men who are newlyweds married outside the race at 24% compared to the 12% of black women. So there we have it. Yes, black men are marrying outside the race more than black women. But are they choosing white women over black women? And is the gap between the percentages because black men just have a desire to be with women of other races, or is it because black women are just choosing to marry out less? I don't know if that really makes sense, but I'll explain. When you look at both men and women that are Hispanic or Asian, they are marrying outside of their race at a higher rate compared to black men. The most common type of interracial marriage is that where one person is white and the other is Hispanic. Asian women are most likely to marry outside of their race. Hispanic men and women intermarry more than black men. Asian men intermarry slightly less than black men. However, I'll say the numbers are still pretty close between both. And if you look at white men and women, they actually intermarry much less. White men marry out at the same rate as black women, and white women marry out less than white men. Meanwhile, they also intermarry less than black women. And that's interesting because lately I've seen talking points that suggest black women are limiting themselves. But again, as we can see, white women are intermarrying at less rates than black women. So as we can see, it isn't mainly black men who are choosing to marry out. Yet, black men get met with claims that they're self-hating when they choose to marry out. And I don't know how this could be when other people of other race groups are intermarrying at higher rates. Now, I'm sure in some cases there are black men who choose to intermarry due to some sort of insecurity. But I can't imagine that in every case of a black man marrying outside of the race being a result of self-hatred. That seems like a stretch to me. I also often see black men who choose to marry out get ridiculed for their choice to do so when the topic of community building comes up. And I know there are black women who'll say they don't care if a black man marries out or dates outside the race. I also know that black women also receive ridicule when they choose to intermarry or date outside the race as well. But when it comes to building the black community, that responsibility seems like it's often placed on the man's capabilities, and a part of the strength of communities, I feel, is families. Look, intermarrying should be a non-issue. You know, it's difficult to control who you fall in love with. But when it comes to community building for those with pro-black sentiments, the stats show that black men are actually marrying black women at a higher rate than those who choose to intermarry. According to black demographics, over 80% of black men who get married are with black women. Also, this notion that successful black men are with white women, I think should stop. According to a study done by Ivory Tolson, a Howard University professor, over 80% of black men who made $100,000 ended up marrying a black woman. And if you look at some of the top black male CEOs, a lot of them are with black women. I believe media has played a part in distorting things. I think imagery of black entertainers such as rappers being surrounded by racially ambiguous women is what's causing this idea that black men who make a lot of money end up dating white women. The consumption of pop culture, I believe, has distorted a lot of what's actually going on within the black community. I would even say that a closer look at black men in Hollywood might show that many of them are actually with black women. Now, with this said, this doesn't actually mean black people are getting married like that. These percentages only reflect the people who are actually getting married. Many black people aren't getting married at all. I often hear that black women are the least likely to get married, but black men are also very unlikely to get married as well. I know there's a lot of back and forth between some black men and women about why the marriage rates are low, but I think behind the low marriage rates, I think a lot of it comes down to economic issues. Anyways, please hit the like button and subscribe if you can. I'm out.